A ghost may have saved my life, posted in the Paranormal subreddit by Lil Miss Ladybug. So I work in an old factory making rope. A bit odd, I know, but bear with me. I've worked here for about 4 years now, and I've had a few strange encounters which I might one day get around to typing up. But for now I'll just tell you the one which frightened and amazed me the most. For a quick bit of backstory, because of the age of the building, people tell me that a lot of people must have died in the building because this was way before health and safety with open machinery running all day. But actually there have only been 2 deaths that we know of. One guy went headfirst over a rope reeler. His hand got snagged on a bit of rope sticking out that pulled him in. He hit his head on the floor when he went over and broke his neck. The other guy hung himself in the stairwell of the loft. So recently I was working on the same reeler this guy died on, which isn't weird. We use it every day, and it was over 30 years ago that he died. I was on my own listening to music on my headphones when I saw a colleague, Clive, walk through the door and come and stand next to me, watching what I was doing. Because of the danger of the machine, we tend to not interrupt each other when we are working on it. So I carried on working. Suddenly something snagged on the back of my hand, and I felt the pressure of the rope pushing down on my fingers in like a vice grip. This next bit happened in seconds, but it felt like forever. I tried to pull my hand away, but it was too late. I felt my body get pulled towards the machine. I felt something hard hit me in the chest, and the pressure lifted from my fingers. I was free, standing upright, and the machine was still going. So I hit the big red stop button, looked at the machine, then turned and looked at Clive. He was white. I know from experience that Clive doesn't believe in anything paranormal, but he just stood there in silence. "What the?" I said. "It looked like something just hit you in the chest." He sort of trailed off. "We talk about it sometimes, what happened, why, if it was him or not. I don't know the guy's name that died, but if it was him, I'd like to thank him. I tend to say hello when I'm in that area now, just in case he's there. He knows he's not forgotten." My dad worked in a Victorian morgue when he was a student, posted in the Paranormal subreddit by Mad Dog Delius. Hi, this is my first post on this thread, but I thought I might be able to share an interesting story with you. My dad worked in the Hahnemann building in Liverpool when he was a student. The building was built in 1887 as a general hospital and dispensary, prescribing treatment according to the alternative medicine doctrines of Samuel Hahnemann, developed in Europe in the late 18th and 19th centuries. At the time my father worked there, it was used as an arts building for the University of Liverpool. He was often the last person in the building and responsible for locking up certain areas of the building at night and things like that. Being an old hospital, there was a morgue in the basement, and this is where my dad would clean the paintbrushes as there was a sink. There was a big Victorian stone morgue table in the center of the room, but my dad said it never really bothered him. It was just a bit creepy. Now, as I've said, he would often be down there at night cleaning up, and it would be quite dark. There was also an old elevator that he used to use instead of the stairs, and this is where he experienced his first paranormal incident. I think I should also mention that my dad is a massive skeptic and still doesn't understand what he saw, but he said nonetheless he was shaken up. So he was the last person in the building and washing up in the morgue one night when he realized he had left something on one of the top floors. He took the elevator up, and when the doors began to open, a black cloaked figure marched past the door down the long corridor. My dad swears it was wearing a top hat as well, and that he felt a breeze of air as the figure moved past the doors. His heart stopped, and he peeked out, but there was nothing there. As it was his job to lock up, he checked every room on that floor and found nothing. He said there was plenty of ghost stories making the rounds at the time, but he never paid much notice and got on with his job. However, this incident shook him up a bit at the time. He remembers it well to this day. Hoping to find some childhood answers, posted in the Paranormal subreddit by Malice183. So I'll get straight to the subject. I was 9 years old and woke up around 3:30 a.m. I felt like I was being watched, looked at the floor and noticed a pair of glowing footprints. Very light blue, almost white in color. They were bare feet and larger than mine. I screamed for my parents and explained the situation. They could not see the footprints, yet I could still see them, even with the lights on. I have ruled out everything I've been able to find in the scientific and biological communities, from fungus that could potentially be tracked into chemical reactions with different paints used on toys. I experienced much more, but to this day the footprints bother me, as my parents could not see them. Has anyone else heard or experienced of a similar situation? And if so, I'm curious of the circumstances and environment. If you do not mind sharing, I've been unable to find anything of note on the subject that was remotely useful. Occurrences in my apartment, posted in the Paranormal subreddit by Massachusetts Ghost. Okay, I've started getting really weird dreams about this shady figure I saw. This is all getting really weird. So let's start from the dream part. In my dream, I was alone in my room, lying in my bed wide awake in terror of some really tall, shady, full black figure who was staring down at me. Well, it didn't have eyes, just a tall black figure. I was in terror and was trying to speak, but couldn't, and that figure gestured me a shh. I woke up. From that dream, I was panting, and then I noticed a shadow entering my parents' room. I keep my door open so that my parents' room is visible, and I screamed loudly. My parents woke up. At this point, I'm crying. I can't help my tears. They were asking me repeatedly about what happened, but I was too traumatized to say anything. I just couldn't say a word. It was horrifying. I do not understand. This happened on the 10th of May, 2016. I'm losing more stuff nowadays. My novels, my makeup, my nail polish. I can't seem to find them when needed. I get them back after a couple of days in the kitchen, as I've already mentioned earlier, so MK Howie, a member here, suggested me to ask it not to take my stuff. So that day, on the 13th of May 2016, I was so frustrated because I couldn't find my guitar plectrums. I had a lot of them stored inside a box so that I wouldn't lose them. The box was kept in my room. I kind of shouted at nobody. Actually, it wasn't meant for it. And very loudly with all my might. It went very quiet after that. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and suddenly, the loud banging started. It was so loud. I couldn't stand it. I don't know why, but I apologized immediately as if it would stop the banging. I remember myself mumbling sorry again and again, but the banging downstairs was just so loud. I was scared. I can't describe that horrified feeling. It felt trapping. I started crying. It was in broad daylight, but still, I screamed a sorry and the banging stopped. It was all quiet again. Then I heard something break in the kitchen. It was my nail polish, all ruined on the surface of the kitchen. I looked side to side but found nothing except for my precious books. There they lay on the table. Ma came after half an hour or so. I was out of the house with red eyes. I told her everything, but she didn't believe. I took her in to show her the mess. She yelled at me instead. I don't like it this way. I feel terrified. I'm not even that brave and all. I'm not interested in paranormal either. I will never forget this day. The banging still continues to occur after my parents are out at night. Thank you again for hearing me out. This is very weird. The dream can be my overthinking, but I can't rationalize the banging and me losing my stuff. Thank you again. Flying Dog in Siberia? Posted in the Paranormal subreddit by WowsyWow. In January of 2014, I was living in Anarsk, Russia, a city of about 200,000 in central Siberia. One morning I was sitting at my desk near the window on my 5th floor apartment. I looked out the window and noticed an object in the sky. It was about 300 feet away from where I was and probably 200 feet off the ground. I watched it for a few minutes while it just stayed in the exact same spot. I turned to my roommate and asked him what he thought it was. So we both stood at the window for a few minutes discussing what it could be. As you see in the pictures, it looked to us like a dog, as it seemed to have a head and 4 legs. After we watched it for a few minutes, it slowly started to move to the north, so we put on our winter gear and ran outside to catch up to it and see what it was. It was moving too fast and we couldn't cross the street or get around buildings before it was out of sight. To this day, I have no idea what it could have been. Some people have told me that maybe it was a balloon, but I've never seen any balloons like that before in a city in Siberia is one of the last places that would have balloons like that. Moreover, balloons don't just sit in the air and not move, and that would definitely rise to more than 200 feet. I took some pictures with a small digital camera, but the quality, go figure in the paranormal thread, isn't great and you have to zoom in. Anyone have an explanation? Going back into my journal, I couldn't pinpoint a day, but I looked in weather archives for that month and on the days nearest to when that would have been, and there was no wind that was moving south to north. Also, while I'm not completely sure about how far away this was, it might have been over a hospital. Anarsk has a huge area for dumping nuclear waste, and some in the city said that there is a secret nuclear weapons factory somewhat nearby. What say ye? Strange pictures from a game cam on my property posted in the Paranormal subreddit by Krisker. I was reviewing pictures from a game camera on my property a few months ago when I came across a few that I can't explain. I live in a rural area and this camera was positioned off a main trail through a thickly wooded area. All the photos here are time-stamped. This is the area the camera covered in daylight for reference. The rest are here, at the risk of a bunch of redundant links. There's nothing in this area that is remotely reflective. I have no idea what I'm looking at here. Does anyone have any insider advice? I'd really appreciate it.